We're live. Finally. So the White House has been teasing us all day, saying that they were going to have a press conference starting at 2 p.m. Eastern time, and that was delayed for 2 hours, and then they just canceled it. Anyway, Trump has been, fighting America's seniors. So apparently people coming from Mexico, he's not happy with it. Some of them he assumes are good people. Hold on a second. That fighting for America's seniors. That makes just as much sense. So let's get going. Apparently here in this news conference, which has already happened, it's not a news conference, just a roundtable, one of his Dear Leader sessions, he does take questions, including saying some really insane stuff. So let's watch. Hi, Danielle.
Matters at the White House. This is from a few minutes ago, the president.
Tomorrow, John, but basically we're going to be talking about things that we've been watching and seeing for the last month. And we're going to have some solutions, I think some good solutions. And some of it, as you know, it's about great people. We need great people in our police departments, and we have mostly great people. I would say that. I would say that with certainty. We have mostly great people. I know so many of them, law enforcement. But we will do better, even better. And we're going to try and do it fast. So we're going to have a meeting tomorrow. We're going to have a news conference tomorrow. We have a lot of law enforcement coming in. And others.
Hey, Debbie.
And they have seen what we're doing. I've sent it around. I've asked for suggestions from different groups, in particular the sheriffs, and I've sent it to our Attorney General. And I think, Bill, you've gone to some of your people with it and shown it. I think it's pretty comprehensive. As you know, Congress is also working on it. The Senate's working on something, and the House is working on two elements of the House. You have the Republicans and the Democrats, and they're each working on their own. But we can get it done, and we'll get it done, and certainly we can add on to what we do by the work that's being done in the House.
It's going to be really, really great, and we're going to do it fast.
House and in the Senate. If we think it's appropriate, maybe they can get something passed, and maybe they can't, but we will get it passed. And it's got to be passed by one person, and the person's me. So we're going to be signing it tomorrow.
So there's going to be legislation, and maybe Congress will do it, maybe they won't. But there's only one person that matters, him. But he can't do legislation.
And we'll have a news conference at some point in the day at the Rose Garden, or maybe in front of the White House at a different location that you know very well, the steps. And we'll see you tomorrow.
Let's go. Let's go. Come on, guys.
What's the overall goal of the executive order and all of these reforms?
So the overall goal is we want law and order, and we want it done fairly, justly. We want it done safely. But we want law and order. This is about law and order, but it's about justice also, and it's about safety. So I think we're going to do a good job tomorrow. I think you're going to see some things that a lot of people thought would not happen.
Hi, producer Green Room.
Hi,
producer Debbie.
Again, though, I want to emphasize it's possible the House can also, on top of this, I spoke to the various leaders, on top of this can get something. But I think this will be very comprehensive tomorrow, so you'll see something. Yeah, please.
What do you think of the Atlanta shooting video that you've seen versus George Floyd?
I thought it was a terrible, I'm not going to compare things, but I thought it was a terrible situation. I studied it closely. I'm going to get some reports done today, very strong reports, and we'll have a little more to say about it tomorrow, but certainly it was to me, it was very disturbing.
It was just last week when he explained that he studied something, and then he explained that means watching it. So he watched the Atlanta shooting.
Mr. President, to start with counsel.
Go ahead, please.
Do you have any reaction to the Supreme Court decisions earlier today about LGBT discrimination, saying that is protected under the Civil Rights Act?
No, they've ruled. I've read the decision, and some people were surprised, but they've ruled, and we live with their decision. That's what it's all about. We live with the decision of the Supreme Court. Very powerful, a very powerful decision, actually. But they have so ruled.
Very powerful Supreme Court decision? Just as powerful as every other Supreme Court decision in history, but okay.
Please, go ahead.
Mr. President, can you react to the FDA's decision today to withdraw its recommendation for hydrochloroquine and another malaria drug, saying it's no longer considered reasonable as a useful treatment for COVID?
I don't know, I'd like to ask Alex maybe to discuss that.
Thank you, Darla.
Sure. So just to clarify, your statement there, I don't think was quite accurate in what the FDA's action was. The FDA, at the request of BARDA, which is an agency within HHS, withdrew an emergency use authorization for product that we had acquired into the national stockpile by donation from Bayer of chloroquine. That was manufactured in Pakistan, and the EUA, the emergency use authorization, was restricted for hospital use, inpatient hospital use of the product. With the FDA finding that they don't see enough data to support hospital-based use for those who are the most extreme cases of patients who've been hospitalized, they took that restriction off. They took the emergency use authorization off. At this point, hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine are just like any other approved drug in the United States. They may be used in hospital, they may be used in outpatient, they may be used at home, all subject to a doctor's prescription. In fact, the FDA's removal of the emergency use authorization takes away what had been a significant misunderstanding by many that had made people think that somehow it could only be used in a hospital setting, and we've tried to make that clear throughout. It's a drug, it's approved in the United States, has been for decades. If a doctor wishes to prescribe it working with the patient, they may prescribe it for any purpose that they wish to do so, and this actually removes a potential barrier to that.
So it actually uncomplicates it.
It does.
In a way, and I think that's probably a question was a very inaccurately stated question.
I didn't mean to pose it inaccurately. I believe what it said specifically was that it's no longer reasonable to consider it an appropriate treatment.
Only in the hospital, it said the data in the hospital setting was not supportive. We continue to study in outpatient settings as well as preventive. That data is not yet in.
Are you suggesting that the data in the hospital setting is not something you would take seriously?
No, that's why the FDA acted, was that they looked at the data and they removed the emergency use authorization for hospital setting use of the chloroquine that was the Bayer product that had been donated from Pakistan.
Mr. President, earlier today, you tweeted that you believe that you were being COVID shamed because of your decision to go ahead with the Tulsa rally on Saturday night. The director of the health department in the county and in the city has encouraged you to postpone that, saying they still think that they've got too big a COVID problem for you to pull off a rally like that. Your thoughts on it?
Well, Oklahoma's done very well. I just spoke to the governor. He's very excited about it. Governor Stitt, who's done a
Very
terrific
well. Okay, hold on. Okay, let him talk. I'll pull that up.
job. Mike, I think you can maybe speak to this. He's done a great job. Oklahoma's at a very low number. They've done really fantastic work. They have a pretty new, magnificent arena, as you probably have heard, and we're getting exact numbers out, but we're either close to or over.
COVID shaming is a terrible, terrible thing. And speaking of terrible things, Oklahoma is up 65% since they reopened. This is their all-time chart. That's where they reopened right there. That's the highest they were before the reopening. They are now higher in Oklahoma, which is why the health director in Tulsa is saying, hey, if you could not come, that would be really great, because look at these spikes. This is just the 7-day rolling average here, this red line. See those spikes? That is Saturday and Sunday, or it's Friday and Saturday. Hard to tell from this chart right here. But yeah, no, Oklahoma is not doing great.
1 million people wanting to go. We have a 22,000 seat arena, but I think we're going to also
19,000.
take the convention hall next door, and that's going to hold 40,000. So we'll have 22,000 plus 40,000, which would mean that we'd have over 900,000 people that won't be able to go, but hopefully they'll be watching. But it's an amazing. Nobody's ever heard of numbers like this. I think we're going to have a.
Only Trump would brag about 900,000 people not being able to go.
We're going to have a great time. We're going to talk about our nation. We're going to talk about where we're going, where we've come from. And I can tell you on COVID or coronavirus or whatever you want to call it, plenty
COVID's
of names.
fine. Coronavirus.
Tremendous progress is being made. I spoke with
He didn't call it the China flu, which is odd.
the governor of Texas, where they've done a fantastic job, and he said they have had some outbreaks.
So the Craigslist ad is probably fake. Those happen all the time. Yes, he did in fact advertise on Craigslist for people during his initial announcement, coming down the escalator and saying, I'm going to run, and some Mexicans, I assume, are good people. That has been verified as much as can be verified. David, if you want to jump in on that, please do. I actually looked on Snopes last night. And I know no one is asking about ramps, David, and they should be. The press should be asking him about ramps. But right now, I'd like to cover the Craigslist ad that's going around that I'm sure with which you are familiar. Okay.
In prisons, and that's where that.
Which reminds me, David, if you could also check on when George Soros is going to get me my check. I love all my patrons, but $20 million, I mean, he'd be the executive producer at that point.
The numbers went out.
That's what I should do. When I make the opening for the live stream, I should say at the bottom, sponsored by George Soros. And see if I get on Fox News with Fox and Friends taking it seriously.
And the numbers change a little bit because of the prison population, but he's got it in great shape. Texas, Florida's doing very well. Georgia's doing very well. We have tremendous numbers. We have hot spots, as I said, you might, and we take care of the hot spots. But many of the governors have done a very good job. Some not as good as others, some very good. But Oklahoma's been a place that I think one of the reasons we chose it is because of how well because it's early. It's very early. And because of what a great job the governor and everybody else has done in Oklahoma. And we expect to have, it's like a record-setting crowd. We've never had an empty seat, and we certainly won't in Oklahoma. Mike, you want to talk about how well Oklahoma's done relative to other places?
Certainly, Mr. President. The President and I have both spoken to Governor Kevin Stitt in the last several days and even earlier today, and Oklahoma has really been in the forefront of our efforts to slow the spread, and in a very real sense, they flattened the curve. And today, their hospital capacity is abundant. The number of cases in Oklahoma has declined.
Okay, here's the important part about the FDA ruling. I'm reading from the actual FDA ruling at this point. FDA's review of the available scientific evidence determined the suggested dosing regimens for CQ, and that's chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine, as detailed in the fact sheets, are unlikely to produce an antiviral effect. That's why they're saying, no, we don't want to do this. We don't want to be giving it to anybody who doesn't have or has it. Because this whole thing about the hospital is just a smokescreen at this point. Yes, the FDA is basically saying it doesn't have, unlikely to produce an antiviral effect. There's your fact check.
Precipitously, and we feel very confident going forward.
It's no wonder Pence is feeling confident, because as of today, Trump can't fire him because of who he is. And that's beautiful.
The rally this coming weekend, we're working closely with the governor. We'll have measures in place to be screening people coming in to the facilities, but Oklahoma's really led the way in demonstrating that we can safely reopen. And so as we gather to hear from the president and hear about the stakes in this election, we'll also be celebrating a state that's demonstrated every day that you can put health first and open up and do all those things at the same time.
And Mike, you gave me a number before nationwide. Overall, how are we doing?
Well, it's really remarkable, Mr. President, with more than 22 million tests having been performed across the country. We continue to see overall that the what's called the positive test rate remains very stable in the country. As we said earlier, Mr. President, there's a few states where the positivity rate is climbing, and we're working very closely with those governors to identify that. You mentioned that in the state of Texas, there was one county where there were literally 3 prisons that had individual outbreaks. That accounted for literally hundreds of new cases in a single day. We're also seeing...
And prisoners don't count.
In Imperial County, California, people who Americans who may live on the opposite side of the border in Mexico, coming home and that's showing up in some of their numbers. But overall, the American people, I think, are to be commended, Mr. President, that because of the steps they've taken and continue to take, we're demonstrating that we can safely reopen. And where we saw coronavirus positive cases 6 weeks ago, over 30,000. Now it's averaged in recent weeks roughly 20,000 new cases a day. As I said, the positivity rate remains flat. Hospitalizations for coronavirus are declining all over the country. And most importantly, our fatality rate continues over a 7-day average to continue to decline. President's always quick to say one loss of life is too many.
The fatality rate, people dying from COVID, is about 6 weeks behind. So this is what happens. You see the new cases start to ramp up in different areas. We're a big country. Some places it's going to be going down. Some places it's going to be ramping up. Part of that is reopening. Part of that is just luck. But what happens is the ramping up of the new cases happens, then the hospitalization happens 3, 4, 5 weeks later, and then people die 5, 6, 7 weeks later. So what they're doing is not doing anything until 6 weeks from now, and that data on the deaths will help them decide what to do last month.
But when we think about a matter of a month and a half ago, when we were losing 2,500 Americans a day, now that we see the numbers declining so precipitously, I think it's a real tribute to our healthcare workers, tribute to every American that has demonstrated each and every day that we can reopen our country, but we can continue to put the health, particularly of our most vulnerable, first.
And yesterday's number was approximately what?
According to some public reporting, Mr. President, I'll have more details later this afternoon, less than 400 fatalities yesterday all across the country.
So that's a far cry from what it was a month ago or 2 months ago, and it's a lot. It's 400 people too much. Shouldn't have happened at all. China should not have let it happen, but it happened. All over the world it's happened, which is a very sad thing, but our number is really the low water mark, and it's getting better, and it'll end up being gone. We're making very good headway with respect to vaccines, Alex, so we're making very good headway therapeutically and a cure-wise. Really, I think really tremendous headway.
If you guys haven't heard, there's a new outbreak in Beijing from a market, from a fruit and vegetables market. Also, there's meat there, and anyway, the market's shut down, and they've had 70-something new cases, and so the government in Beijing has said, everybody go home, stay home. It's just like that. And there's no, we're not going to do it. Now, they're a communist regime, so people are going to do what they say, but we'll see what happens there.
I've seen the results. I've met with some of the people that do the work. Smart people, great people, people that have succeeded before. I think vaccines are coming along far in advance of what.
We've never had a virus for a corona. We've never had a virus. Listen to me. I'm going to clip that. That's going to be my advertising piece. We've never had a vaccine for a coronavirus.
What they thought they would be. And I think we'll have some very good news for you on vaccines and therapeutics and cures, frankly, because I guess, if you look at therapeutics, if it acts fast enough, I guess you call it a cure, wouldn't you say? So I think we're going to have some very good news on that. But we're at a low mark, and some of them, like in Texas, where you had a prison population that went heavy, and now it's controlled. So we understand the disease. We've learned. I was with the governor of New Jersey the other night, and we had a great talk about economic development, and we're going to be doing a big bridge that they've been looking for, I guess he said, since 1918 they've been looking to redo it. So that's a long time. But and we've agreed to do that. It's about $900 million. But he had mentioned 2,500 deaths, or 12,500 deaths. 12,500 deaths, and out of that, there was one death under 18. I said, say it again. So it was over 12,000. I guess the exact number was 12,500. And they did the study from that point, and out of that, one death was under the age of 18, which is pretty amazing. I knew it was, which tells me the schools hopefully are going to be back in the fall. They're going to be back in full blast, but the young
Hey kids, school's back in full blast.
people have very strong immune systems. I imagine that's the reason, but they've come out of this.
Kids do not have strong immune systems. That's the opposite of what they
At a level that's really inconceivable.
Wait, did he?
By the way,
there is a theory on this.
They're going to be back in full blast, but the young people have very strong immune systems. I imagine that's the reason.
No. One theory, and no one knows this for sure, is that good night, everybody. Drive safely. That because kids don't have a developed immune system, their immune system doesn't attack their organs the same way that we're seeing in some of the cytokine storms, where the immune system finds the virus and then starts attacking the organs and trying to kill the virus and ends up killing the body, because you need most of your organs.
But they've come out of this at a level that's really inconceivable. By the way, the regular flu, other flus, other things, SARS or H1N1, any of them, if you look at the young people, they were affected like everybody else. But for whatever reason, with respect to COVID, the numbers are very, very low. So, yeah, please.
Mr. President, are you still sending hydroxychloroquine to Brazil and other countries?
Yeah, he's asked for it, and we're sending it. Well, I can't complain about it. I took it for 2 weeks, and here we are. And we've had some great studies. I didn't know about the report that Jeff asked about, or the statement, but we've had some great reports coming out of France, coming out of Spain, coming out of other places. The only place we don't get necessarily reports are coming out of Alex's agency or wherever they come from. I don't understand that, Alex. What is it exactly?
What?
Because I have had so many people that were so thrilled with the results from hydroxy. So what is that exactly?
Well, at your direction, we continue to study, especially in earlier phase. So a lot of the data that has come out that was more negative was people who were quite ill in the hospital.
People that were like seriously ill, like they weren't going to make it. Let's give them a little hydroxy, and then they don't make it, and they say, oh, wow, maybe the president was wrong. All I know is that we've had some tremendous reports. I've had a lot of people tell me.
And all I know is that the FDA has said they are unlikely to produce an antiviral effect. That's what I know.
That they think it saved their life.
But he has had people call him. So
you know, the one woman who's a fantastic woman, the representative from Detroit, she was fantastic. But there are many people like that say the same thing. So I don't know, but I took it and I felt good about taking it. I don't know if it had an impact, but it certainly didn't hurt me. I feel good.
certainly didn't hurt me. I've got a spring in my step. I'm taking ramps in under 25 seconds.
Good.
Mr. President.
Yeah.
The House Republicans today, they are asking you to reverse your decision on terminating the relationship with the WHO. Would you consider that?
I don't know. I have to see what they're asking. I have no idea what they're asking.
It was after an investigation.
I have no idea what they're asking. But I'll take a look. The World Health Organization has been very disappointing. To the world, they've been disappointing. And we, as you know, paid $450 million and close to $500 million on some years. But for years and years, we paid far more than anybody else. And they've been a puppet of China. And so, no, I'm not reconsidering unless they get their act together. And I'm not sure they can at this point, but maybe certainly over the years they might. But they have been
Wait, what happened with Bev? Bev, someone said congratulations to you. Hi, British, by the way. Hi, Stephanie. Hi, Bev. Hi, there's so many people in here today, which is great. Don't get me wrong. I like to say hi to everybody if I can. Even if I don't say hi, I hopefully have seen you, but somebody just said congratulations, Bev. So, Bev, And now Bev is saying, thank you, Sheila. And you guys are a couple of minutes behind here or whatever. But let me know what's going on with Bev. Or Bev, send me a DM or whatever.
Disaster. They were wrong on every call, including when I said we're going to close up the United States to people coming in from China, where China was heavily infected at that time and possibly still is. And I closed it, and that was a wise decision. There were a lot of people, even on the other side, the enemy, we'll call them the enemy. They said that was an incredible decision. I don't know how.
We're going to call the Democrats the enemy because, you know, bringing the country together. Remember his State of the Union that was unity?
Trump made that decision. But he made that decision, and we saved thousands of lives, hundreds of thousands of lives. Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. President, just on a separate issue.
No.
I apologize.
Mr. President, can you say why you're suing John Bolton to prevent publishing his book?
Well, I don't know. I'd have to ask the Attorney General, but I will say if he's doing a book, I think it's totally inappropriate.
Whoa. The Attorney General is suing John Bolton? Wouldn't it be the White House can't? I don't know. I don't know. Why the hell is anyone suing John? I suppose it could be if he's saying that things are executive privilege, which is a milky subject anyway.
Appropriate that he does a book. I think a guy, I gave him a break. He couldn't get Senate confirmed. He was never Senate confirmed the first time. I don't think he's supposed to even be calling himself an ambassador because he couldn't get Senate confirmed. He got in through a little trick, and he was there for a fairly short period of time. I put him here because he couldn't get Senate confirmed. This was a non-Senate confirmed position, as you know. He stayed for a short while, and I felt that it was not appropriate that he stay any longer. I wasn't impressed. And somebody said he went out and wrote a book. If he wrote a book, I can't imagine that he can, because that's highly classified information. Even conversations with me, they're highly classified. I told that to the Attorney General before. I will consider every conversation with me as president highly classified. So that would mean that if he wrote a book, and if it...
So what we're watching right now is highly classified, according to Trump.
If the book gets out, he's broken the law. And I would think that he would have criminal problems. I hope so. Otherwise, I mean, they put a sailor in jail because he sent a photo.
No. When the Supreme Court has ruled on executive privilege, they haven't really ruled on it, by the way. It's more during the Nixon administration, and they looked at it and said, if there's matters of national security importance. So, no, not every conversation the president has is top secret.
Photograph of his bed and an engine of an old submarine. And if this guy's writing things about conversations or about anything, and maybe he's not telling the truth. He's been known not to tell the truth a lot. So we'll have to see what the book is all about. But, you know, a lot of people are upset with him for writing a book. A lot of people are very angry with him for writing a book. But it's up to the Attorney General. Bill, do you have anything to say about it?
Well, people who come to work in the government and have access to sensitive information generally sign an agreement that says that when they leave government, if they write something that draws on or might reflect some of the information they've had access to, they have to go through a clearance process before they can publish the book. And we don't believe that Bolton went through that process, hasn't completed the process, and therefore is in violation of that agreement.
So what is the DOJ doing?
And that's criminal liability, by the way, you're talking about. You're not talking about like he's got to return $3 that he made on a book. That's called criminal liability. That's a big thing. You know, Hillary Clinton, she deleted 33,000 emails. And if we ever found out what those emails say, she would have had a liability. That's what you have. You have liability.
Could the Attorney General tell us what the DOJ is doing in terms of the Bolton book?
Well, there are a number of things, but the thing that is front and center right now is trying to get him to complete the process, go through the process, and make the necessary deletions of classified information.
But the book is...
Michael Bolton was never working for Trump, but John Bolton worked for Trump for a short period of time, 518 days, more than a year, short period of time.
It's been published.
No, it hasn't.
Yes, it's been published. It's just not released yet.
Well, it's being printed. It's being printed.
Hasn't been released.
According to sources, it's being printed. It hasn't been released.
So are you going to court to try to stop?
Well, I said what we were doing was try to get him to complete the clearance process that's required
His lawyer says that he thought that they had completed the process. Were there changes after that first iteration?
Well, he hasn't completed the process.
He never completed the process. He knew that.
This is unprecedented, really, because I don't know of any book that's been published so quickly while, the office holders are still in government, and it's about very current events and current leaders and current dissions and
this happens all
current
the time.
Policy issues.
There's literally been 6 or 7 books about Trump during Trump's tenure. Fire and Fury.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. But he knows, and he was advised not to write it, and he was advised very strongly not to write it until it's cleared. And he couldn't wait. And we'll see what happens. But I think he's got, personally, I would imagine he has, when you do classified, that to me is a very strong criminal problem. And he knows he's got classified information. Any conversation with me is classified. Then it becomes even worse if he lies about the conversation.
It is not.
Which I understand he might have in some cases. So we'll see what happens. They're in court, or they'll soon be in court, but he understands he did not complete a process or anywhere near complete a process.
On a separate foreign policy issue, sir, you faced a little bit of criticism from congressional Republicans, including Representative Cheney, about your decision to withdraw troops from Germany. Are you reconsidering that at all?
So we have 52,000 soldiers in Germany. That's a tremendous amount of soldiers. It's tremendous cost to the United States. And Germany, as you know, is very delinquent in their payments to NATO. And they're paying 1%, and they're supposed to be at 2%, and the 2% is very low. It should be much more than that. So
Germany's paying 1.5%. NATO fees are best effort. A guideline is 2%, but there's not like a 2% bill that's sent out to every country every year. That's just what would be ideal for the countries to reach, according to the United States and NATO.
They're delinquent of billions of dollars, and this is for years delinquent.
You can't be delinquent on a suggested donation.
So we're removing we're putting the number down to 25,000 soldiers. We'll see what happens. But Germany has not been making payment. In addition to that, I was the one that brought it up. Everybody talks about Trump with Russia. Well, I brought this up a long time ago. Why is Germany paying Russia billions of dollars for energy, and then we're supposed to protect Germany from Russia?
So they can have energy?
How does that work? It doesn't work. So Germany's delinquent. They've been delinquent for years, and they owe NATO billions of dollars.
They do not owe NATO any money.
So we're protecting Germany, and they're delinquent. That doesn't make sense. So I said we're going to bring down the soldier count to 25,000 soldiers. It varies. It's around 52,000 now, but it varies. But it's a lot. And as you know, those are well-paid soldiers. They live in Germany. They spend vast amounts of money in Germany. Everywhere around those bases is very prosperous for Germany. So Germany takes, and then on top of it, they treat us very badly on trade. We have trade with the EU, and Germany being the biggest member.
Biggest member. According to what I found here, according to the U.S. military, there are in 2019 there were roughly 38,600 troops. So I'm not sure where he's getting 32,000, unless the Pentagon has told him, hey, we've got 52,000 troops there. And he's like, oh, let's cut that by a third. And they're like, all right, that's what we'll do.
Very, very badly on trade, and we're negotiating with them on that. But right now I'm not satisfied with the deal they want to make. They've cost the United States hundreds of billions of dollars over the years on trade. So we get hurt on trade, and we get hurt on NATO. Now, with NATO, I've raised other countries $140 billion. They're paying $140 billion more.
He has not raised the other countries paying more. He's certainly encouraged, but the other countries have been paying more gradually every year since the recession, including under Obama.
Because I interceded. I said, look, we're protecting you. You have to pay your bills. Because it was going like this until I got here. Now it's gone like a rocket ship. But one of the only countries that hasn't agreed to pay what they're supposed to pay is Germany. So I said, until they pay, we're removing our soldiers.
What? Hold on. Sorry.
You know, we're protecting you. You have to pay your bills. Because it was going like this until I got here. Now it's gone like a rocket ship. But one of the only countries that hasn't agreed.
This is how a rocket ship goes, according to Trump. He was just at a launch, and he thinks that rockets do this.
To pay what they're supposed to pay is Germany.
Sorry, let's go back. One more time.
Because I interceded. I said, look, you know, we're protecting you. You have to pay your bills. Because it was going like this until I got here. Now it's gone like a rocket ship. But one of the only countries that hasn't agreed to pay what they're supposed to pay is Germany. So I said, until they pay, we're removing our soldiers, a number of our soldiers, by about half. And then when we get down to 25,000, we'll see where we're going. But Germany has been delinquent, and why should we be doing what we're doing if they don't pay? And they're supposed to pay. And the number they're supposed to pay, actually, at 2%, the 2% should be higher. And we're also talking about for many years. This isn't a new phenomenon. This is going on for many years, where they've taken advantage of the United States. But everybody has, under Biden and under Obama, what
Biden was never in charge of NATO. He was a vice president.
They've done to this country is unbelievable. And I'm not only talking about Germany, by the way, I'm talking about plenty of other countries. But NATO now is paying $140 billion more. If you look at the Secretary General, who's terrific, Stoltenberg, he's been terrific. He's probably my biggest fan. He said nobody else could have done what Trump did, because I raised the other countries by $140 billion, because we end up paying the difference. The United States pays the difference to protect Europe. So we protect them, and then they take advantage of us on trade for many, many years. We're not talking about now, less so now, for many years. So.
Just a reminder with NATO, Article 5 of the NATO Charter is the article that states that if one country in NATO calls for aid, all the other countries will help. So that's been invoked one time, and that time was after 9/11. The United States is the only country to ever invoke Article 5, and all the other countries in NATO came to our aid. Just for reference.
We're working on a deal with them. But it's very unfair, and I would say by far the worst abuser is Germany.
Mr. President, on Seattle, you said last week on Seattle that if the mayor of Seattle, the governor of Washington, didn't take steps to end the occupation of the Capitol Hill neighborhood, you would step in and you would do something. 100%. That they still haven't ended it.
100%.
They're negotiating. Are you considering taking action?
You know, they're negotiating garbage removal. These people have taken over a vast part, a major part, a very good part.
It's 3 blocks long, and it's not a very good part. It's Capitol Hill. It's an arts district, a gay district in Seattle. It's a lot of fun, and it's where we have our block parties and our summer festivals sometimes and stuff like that. It's 3 blocks long. There's no blocking. You just walk in and walk out. You get some free soup and some. Kevin Lee Daughter was there yesterday and got free vegan, gluten-free Ben & Jerry's ice cream. Somehow, the Ben & Jerry's truck managed to get beyond the barriers, armed and guarded by Antifa, because they don't exist. So Ben & Jerry's truck shows up and everyone's like, yeah, come on in. And they give out free ice cream. I mean, if that's not capitalism.
Of a place called Seattle. Seattle's big stuff. That's a major city. And we have a governor who's a stiff, and we have a mayor who said, this is going to be a love fest.
Yeah.
And by the way, these are violent people that took it over. These are not people that are...
What? What kind of people?
Seattle's big stuff. That's a major city.
Seattle's big stuff.
And we have a governor who's a stiff, and we have a mayor who said, this is going to be a love fest.
Yeah.
And by the way, these are violent people that took it over. These are not people that are... nice people.
Literally, I walked the entire 3 blocks. What it is, it's 3 blocks and a soccer pitch. I walked the entire 3 blocks, not a single broken window. Hold on. Kevin Lee Daughter's here. Did you see any broken windows yesterday? Any violence?
No.
No. Were fights?
No.
Dogs barking at each other?
No, there were so many dogs. They were all so cute.
So many dogs.
At the tennis court.
Oh, okay, cool. But if you are afraid of dogs, as Trump is, then yeah, Seattle is a hellhole right now.
On your network today, John, I saw what went on with the hitting and the punching and the beating and all the other things going on in Seattle. And you have a governor that doesn't do a damn thing about it.
Hold on, I better double check that. Kevin Lee Daughter, fact check. Were you hit or punched yesterday? We're waiting. This is important.
What?
Were you hit or punched yesterday?
No.
You sure?
Yeah, I don't
Were you
like
shoved from behind?
I didn't let anyone touch me.
Did anyone give you side eye? Was any shade thrown at you? Okay, yeah.
I wish there was shade thrown.
No,
It was so
nothing.
hot.
Sorry,
You know,
guys. I
she's
wish I had
alive.
news for you.
She's talking about it's going to be a love fest this summer. Now, if they don't do the job, I'll do the job. And I've already spoken to the Attorney General about it. But if they don't do the job, we will do the job.
What can you do?
About 10 different things.
Name
any
one.
one of which will solve the problem quickly.
Name one.
Do we go through a whole list or a partial list?
We don't have to go through any list. We can do a lot of things.
Mr. President,
I think it's
Just one.
incredible
Just
also
give us one.
that the radical left press doesn't cover it. They're acting like nothing happened. You turn on the news, you look at the news, you don't even see stories about it.
I'm radical.
If the right ever took over a city, conservative Republicans took over a city, it would be the biggest story in history. You can't even find stories about Seattle. It's incredible.
How much longer
They've taken over. We'll see.
I'm not even going to fact check that.
I tell you what, the American public is very angered by that. Seattle is a major, important city, and the Democrats, I guess you say radical left, but it's not even radical left. It's just Democrat. Where we have our problem are Democrat-run cities. If you look at Minneapolis, if you look at other cities that have had trouble, they're Democrat in virtually every case that I can think of. I can't think of one other case. These are Democrat-run cities. Minneapolis, where the police are told to run for your lives. Don't do anything. And if I didn't get involved and send in the National Guard, and it was at my insistence that
Trump did not send in the National Guard. The governor sent in the National Guard. Trump can't send in the National Guard anywhere but in Washington, D.C. That's the wrong Washington, and that's why he's confused.
they did that, and as soon as I did that, everything stopped in Minneapolis 4 days, 5 days later.
Is there a timeline that you're thinking here, Seattle?
There's no timeline. We're watching it very closely. These are violent people that are dealing violently, and I think what I'd like to see before we do something, I'd like to see the press get in and cover it, because it's not that they're covering it badly, they're hardly covering it all. Think of this.
Okay.
A group, Antifa and others,
couldn't find any
radical
Antifa.
lefts,
Yeah.
they went into a major
Hippies.
U.S. city, Seattle,
Yes, they
and
live
they took
there.
over a big percentage of that city, and the press doesn't.
They already live there. This is Capitol Hill. So you're think of your town, the arts district, the gay district. Just for an example, Capitol Hill, the crosswalks are rainbows. The city painted a couple of years ago, they painted the crosswalks as rainbow. So you have not just rainbows, but the gay flag. So the colors of the gay flag are the crosswalks on Capitol Hill, right where this is happening, right where Chaz or whatever you want to call it. Anyway, now Seattle actually has two arts districts. We have Chaz, Capitol Hill, and then we have another hill over there, and that's called Fremont, which years ago declared themselves independent of Seattle. They just decided that they were going to be the People's Republic of Fremont, another arts district. And everything is just fine. But they claim that they're independent, and people living in Fremont will even put Fremont instead of Seattle on their letters.
Want to cover it. And we have a mayor who's scared stiff. She doesn't know what's happening. We have a governor that's one of the most overrated politicians in the country. He just ran for president. He got less than 1%.
If he ran for president and only got 1%, really hard to say he's overrated.
He actually probably, I would have said less than 0, but I'm not sure that's possible. He got nothing. He got no votes, nothing. The whole thing, the guy was out there fighting. At the end, he got 0, right? 0. So he failed. And now he goes back.
Like Trump did the first time he ran in 2000.
And they take over a city, and he doesn't say anything about it. Worse, he said he didn't hear it. A day later, he said, I didn't hear anything about it. They took over a city, Seattle, and he said, I didn't hear anything about it.
Because they haven't taken over the city. I can walk from here. Everything's fine, people. Please don't panic.
So look, The governor has to call out the troops, do what he has to do, has to call out the National Guard.
That's true. As David pointed out here, Inslee owes people at least 2% of the vote. Good point, David.
Has to do something, because, you know, the problem with what happened in Seattle is it spreads. And all of a sudden they'll say, let's do some other city.
Yeah.
And let's do another one.
Right.
And we're not going to let it happen. So timing-wise, hey, we're all set to go. We're watching the process. But the most amazing thing about the process is how the fake news media doesn't want to cover it. To me, that's the most amazing thing. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, you've been listening to the president here commenting on developments in Seattle, where a citizen group has effectively cordoned off the 6, 7
There was a
block.
question about the rallies. What was that? That last thing he did. Big question. It's a big night. I hope you're all going to be there. Let's see what he did with his
To
arm
me,
here
that's
at
the
the end
most
here.
amazing thing. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, you've been listening to the president here commenting on developments in
Just
Seattle,
right
where
arm
a
there.
citizen group has effectively
Conspiracy time.
cordoned
Get your
off
red
the
pens
6,
out.
7 block
what that
radius of Seattle.
Somebody really should have offered him a drink. Can I offer you some water, Mr. President? Well, that ramped up to nothing. Anyway, so yeah, I'm going to go get a hot dog, I think, in occupied Seattle. Oh, that's right. There's Capitol Hill occupied protest? CHOP. So it's now called Chaz, and it's also called CHOP. And they're all sitting around in a drum circle and snapping their fingers every time they come up with a decision. So there was probably a tie of snaps between Chaz and CHOP. But honestly, while we were there, nobody called it Chaz except the Chaz Lending Library. And I think they're probably the ones, they're like, we should call this Chaz. And everyone else is like, no, not Chaz. But they're like, but they wrote it down first. And so the Fox News cameras saw it, and then we have Chaz. Okay, guys, I'm actually going to go play some tennis with Kevin Lee's son, because that's how we get our exercise now. You guys can talk amongst yourselves, but in about 10 seconds, the feed's going to be cut off. In the meantime, I want you guys to see the people that brought all of you in here today. They're responsible for it. My patrons, whom I love with all my heart. And if you'd like to be a patron, you certainly can at kevinleefather.com. Go to Patreon. You can contribute money there and help me do stuff like this and pay for tennis balls, quite frankly. You don't have to worry about paying for food for me anymore, because even though I'm not receiving unemployment, I can walk to Chaz and get all the free food I want. They did have, this is the part where I take like an hour and a half to say goodbye. Meanwhile, Kevin Lee's son's over at the tennis court just going bounce, 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 trying to reserve the court for me. Anyway, I better get going because the courts are crowded and it's hard to get one. And he's there waiting for me. But I wanted you guys to see who some of the sponsors are that brought this to you. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Please, if you see one of the sponsors and you happen to recognize them, say thank you sometime. Otherwise, be good to each other, stay healthy, and don't go anywhere until I can find... Watch the closing credits all the way through.